Hey, I'm John Rife, and I'm going to go beyond the smoke with the Thomas Ward.
John Rife, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you
for coming in.
Yeah, appreciate it.
I want you to tell everybody that's watching just a little history about yourself and this great space that you did. You're the first one that did it.
Yeah.
Really, in Orlando. And it was what now? How old?
We'll be 10 years in November, so like in
Which
5,
is
6 months.
impressive, yeah. Owner of East End, owner of other properties, doing other projects. But let's talk about East End, because I think it's created a whole ecosystem in terms of restaurants coming out and stuff like that. So how did you come up with the idea?
My wife had finished her degree. I was going to start my degree at UCF, and we knew we had this window of time to maybe go explore the country. And so I'd been in and lived in 40 countries before then, but I had only been in like 3 or 4 states. So my wife's like, that's terrible. Go see your own country. So literally, this is back 2007. We started a YouTube channel called Finding America, and we shot 150 videos and just took 3 months to go explore the country. But we kept going to these cool markets, like some of them that are, owned by cities, some of them that were private, but like Pike's Market in Seattle and Granville Market in Vancouver. And so you're seeing all these great markets and going, why don't we have this in Orlando? Like, we have such a diversity of cuisine here. I think until you go away, you don't realize how blessed we are. There's so much diversity of cuisine that surely we could support a big public market. So I came back and continued my degree, but was sort of going, what's happening here? So we just started getting in the scene. I started showing up at organic growers meetings and green drinks and all these other like events. It's like kind of the token yuppie at the drum circle going, there's something here, granola happening, and I want to be a part of it, but I don't know how to make it a business yet. Started doing festivals in downtown Winter Park 4 days before Thanksgiving each year, saying, hey, if I bring it together all the farmers, you can buy from local farmers for Thanksgiving. The idea was we'll do a video. We'll go visit them all. I'm like, I'm too busy with my work and school and whatever. I can't do that. I'll just bring them all together in one big thing. So that really was the genesis of the idea of East End. Was now I have a sandbox full of really cool vendors that most of them were setting up at farmers markets. Maybe one had a brick and mortar, but most of these guys were kind of pop up and going, I love farmers market, but I'm setting up and breaking down. Like, what if I had a place that was permanent? So I was talking to people in the scene, and I was like, God, we really need a building. Like, we need a developer. And I'm like, wait, that's what I do. Like, I'm a real estate developer. So I started looking for property and looked at a couple different spots. Actually looked at Red Light. I know the owner's a nice guy, but he wasn't looking to sell, and I wasn't looking to rent because this was too speculative. It's like, I don't know if this is going to work. So then this church had been vacant in Audubon Park since 2007. Now I think I bought it in 2012. So it had been a while. And they were trying to convert it to something else, and then the bottom fell of the economy. So it was vacant, had been vacant, and had a lot of development things that had to get done, which is why it sat on the market. Like, we have a stormwater retention pond in the back underneath the concrete. Like, we did some stuff to make that site viable. But really within the first couple of weeks of announcing that this is going to happen, we had most of our tenants, at least the original group. I think we still have about half of them, from original. But yeah, so 2013 we opened, 2013. So maybe it has been a decade. So it's already been a decade.
It's been 10 years. Yeah. At that time, to be clear, I guess the food trucks that started in 2011.
Yeah. So that was a big
change.
Proof of concept. It was like that market validated the idea. Like, people will, one, travel for really good food, and two, it started allowing people to make a living without having to jump right to a restaurant. Like, it was like, okay, how do I do that on brick and mortar? Like, our brick and mortars are way more affordable than a 1,500 or 2,000 square foot space somewhere. Plus, you're synergized with these other tenants. But how do we do that? How do we leverage what's happening in the food truck scene? We had the Audubon Park Market that was local only, and
on Mondays.
So, on Monday nights. Yeah. So it was happening. But I think you're right. I think the food truck scene was when I went, this is going to work. Like, people are interested in the varieties of cuisine, and if we can make it more permanent, they'll show up. And so in tandem with the festivals, we'd have 3,000 to 5,000 people, depending on weather. And okay, if I can mobilize those people, and all these vendors also come and use their networks to bring people in,
Mm-hmm.
we got a pretty good circus.
It was early in the market, though.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, for Orlando itself, as you saw in the United States, it was happening for a long time.
Oh, for sure.
And then other markets sprung out, like the Atlanta markets that has sprung up and all that, and it's been great.
Yeah.
And I've used that kitchen for the creation of Pick Floyd's.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's been helpful for a lot of people. Once you started it, obviously it took off enormously, and then you have some tenants that have obviously grown out of there.
Way bigger than us.
Way bigger
which
than-
is great. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, it's like you don't want to be the center of everything. Like at first it felt like, you know, there were a few of us really pushing the boundaries, and then it was like, oh, great. Now everybody is. I don't want to say I can sit back and relax, but it's like, oh, awesome. Like, because there's a sense of like responsibility when you're doing this brand new thing and people are entrusting you to make it work.
Sure.
So once it started working and they started doing their own stuff, the pressure was off a little bit. But yeah, I mean, Gideon's Cookies is like out at Disney Springs now blowing up. You know, you've got Cadence and now Kaya. Lineage Coffee Roasting's around town. Farm and House just opened up on Park Avenue. Like it's Domu's all over town now and in Jacksonville. So it's been great to see some of those things happen where had they not gotten their start at the market, they may not have happened. Like Lowe with Cadence and Kaya, like started farming with me out front. And then Jen and Mark came and it was like, they have this idea for a Kamayan dinner and great. And I'm like, holy cow, look at all these people that came out for this dinner. And they're like, oh, we want to open a little 7-seat sushi restaurant. I'm like, I have a vacancy. So a lot of what we do now is that there's no waiting list. It's like we're just trying to keep our finger on the pulse of what the community wants and needs and really the micro of that 1 mile radius. Like, how do we serve these people really well so that when you come to visit East End, you're getting a flavor of that neighborhood or what people in that specific region love. Like, I would love to have like some of the other cuisine that's down on I Drive and the tourism corridor. I just don't know that it's supported enough by the neighborhood. Like, I love that we're, 5-10 blocks from the Mills 50 district with this amazing, Asian fusion cuisine and stuff and great Cuban. And it's been fun to see things grow out of there for sure.
When you started the project to where you are now, what are the major like differences in your head that you've seen obviously throughout the years? Because I feel like the Orlando food scene has changed so much, right? I mean, with the food trucks and everything that was going on and then East End and all that, it's developed much faster than what it was.
Yes.
And now we're at this food scene where all of a sudden we have Michelin star rated restaurants. All these things have changed and we're becoming kind of a major food destination now,
right
in Florida, at least. What is your opinion on where it's going? How has it changed? Because I know East End has adapted.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I tell you, day one we were local only. It was like we had the local roots as an example. She was a farm to restaurant distributor, had a beer bar and a veggie stand, and it was a lot about buying from local producers and supporting that scene, supporting the where can we get fresh, sustainably grown produce in Central Florida. And then we started to adapt because when we had Cadence or had Capo, their predecessor, they're flying in stuff from Japan. So someone was like, well, this isn't local. I'm like, true, it's local to there and it's regional and it's pushing the boundaries in cuisine. So we kind of had to make that shift and to say, how do we now support things that are truly authentic and unique and kind of getting away from it has to be within 100 miles, so to speak. So we made that shift. And then I'd say we started supporting makers more as well. So I think that scene was a few years behind the food scene, but you're seeing great local makers and flower shops and I mean, like Rife Paper Company. I mean, just stuff that was like made here, born here, and now we're kind of exporting it. I'd say from the food scene, and I maybe 2.5, 3 years ago, I started really getting hard on the second, third generation cultural foods where people were learning from their grandparents and finding ways because of supply chain to source ingredients that made it authentic enough to taste like home.
Okay.
So I think the challenge before was you had Cisco, US Foods, Gordon's, and whoever, and no one had shiso. It's like this beautiful little, green that's served in a lot of Asian cuisine. But that flavor is so significant in dishes that if you don't have it, it doesn't taste authentic. So when Kappa was able to start buying regionally, recognizable stuff from their home country, but made in America, or like grown in America and sourced by some of the bigger distributors, I think we started to turn the corner where there was a big enough market in Orlando for a broader variety of standard pars from a food distributor. And so I think that helped a lot where they weren't having to fake it. Even like tortillas and stuff, like getting authentic corn and milling it yourself. And like, it's not just coming in a big bag. Like I think there's some of that where I'm seeing chefs that are going, and we could use Domu as an example, like hand making the noodles, and using ingredients that they're buying sometimes from Japan because it's the authentic flavor, and they're willing to do that and do a 72-hour bone broth. And so I think that level of authenticity is what attracts me to the Orlando food scene and going out to restaurants and trying it out. And I would say that the barriers to entry are so much lower from a gatekeeper perspective. I felt like we went through this period where it's like, well, if you're not in the scene and you don't know somebody, good luck.
Yeah.
Now it's like, really, I mean, if you're hot shit, it'll happen. If you are really a craftsman and you got to have, it's some luck and you got to have some marketing prowess. I'd say that's what I love about Orlando now, is that doesn't feel like there's gatekeepers. It feels like you really, maybe the only gatekeeping is access to capital.
Capital,
because these guys can be awesome at what they do, but no bank is going to look at them. And if they haven't been in business for 2 years, forget SBA. So that's the missing link, I think, is trying to find ways to get some of these guys that would be awesome if they had the capital.
The capital is a tough part.
Yeah.
That a lot of people don't realize, that it takes some years under your belt to be able to look at a bank and be like, hey, we got some financials, we can show you something.
Right.
And then a bank might sound interested, but it's very tough.
Yeah.
Very tough. That's why I think, and don't quote me on this, but the pandemic gave access to capital to a lot of restaurants.
Sure. You're right.
Including me.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, definitely.
That we'll never see again. And everybody was like, why are you taking loans? I'm like, because this ain't going to happen again.
That's
ever.
a good point. Yeah.
That's what the intention of the money was, to keep it
Spur
open
the
and keep
economy
it flowing and
keep people employed. Yeah.
Right. I think that has also kickstarted this second wave of just openings. I mean, there's a lot of people that are pushing the market, that are pushing a lot of restaurants to come open. Camille, Kaya, all that, which are different experiences all by themselves.
Yeah. I think that's the challenge too, is to try to go from fast casual to a single item, like a dochi. It's just a donut. They do some other drinks and stuff, but then, or like a light on the sugar, which is, expanded and it's a bit more, bakery items. And then, so you've got this kind of panoply of choices, and just as unique, just as authentic. Stop in, grab a box of, like Paris banh mi. I don't know if you've been there, but like, love going in there, getting a banh mi, getting a bubble tea with my kids. It's cool. Like, it's really fresh. I love the ease of that. So you're seeing these little segments where it's the same cuisine, but experienced in different ways. So like a chef's table versus Milk District, like the slide up window. You're standing outside and it's a slide up window. I mean, it reminds me of living in Miami and getting my cafe cubano. You just slide a window up, give me a little Dixie cup. And I'm like, this is so rad. Awesome. So I do like that. I think there's promise in that it can feel saturated, but it's not vertically saturated. I think everyone goes, oh, there's so many options. I'm like, yes, that's true, but I'm not going to go eat at Camille every night or Kaya or Doshi or whatever. It's like, you need to have the variety of experiences.
Looking at it from a different point of view in terms of restaurants, like I'm in the fast casual world and I'm going into full service, like those type of restaurants, it's sometimes hard for me to even comprehend, because it's a special event, it's 10 seats, it's expensive.
Yeah.
So it's not a thing that you're like going weekly. And you tend to think like, wow, how hard is it to get 10 customers paying $250, $300 a pop?
Right.
But all these restaurants are packed.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
which is impressive.
At some point, you have to reach saturation. But Orlando is becoming such a noticed destination, to your point with Michelin coming, that people come. Actually, I think it was like New York Times or Wall Street Journal today was talking about food tourism. That people are going, like, that's the thing. I mean, not that it wasn't before. We always are going to new cities and wanting to eat food. But there are people going, I'm specifically traveling there to eat, not to go to Disney, not to go to Universal or whatever. I'm like, I'm going because the food scene is that incredible. What I think is really fascinating is the whole, the fast casual, the full service restaurant. I'm really interested to see your journey in that and how it feels on both sides of that fence.
It's a whole different level, actually, in my experience. I mean, obviously you're now adapting to sales necessarily, because now you're going directly to the table and doing the sales at the table, where you have not a lot a control of what that person is telling them.
Sure.
For me,
like miniature salespeople. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, it's a little tougher, because now the sales are going away from a computer that, everything in a fast casual world, it's a little bit more controlled.
Right.
And it's a little bit easier, I think. When you bring in liquor, now you're bringing in bartenders and something that's very hard to keep inventory of.
Yeah. We have one.
You're right. And then when you do full service that you're going to the table, I think it changes that whole training They have to be well trained, well versed, understand the menu, selling something, trying something.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just feel the whole process has been different. What I think is important is obviously, like we're saying, the whole market is shifting. I feel. I don't know.
Well, yeah,
that's why I want to ask.
Yeah, well, I'm curious, like from your perspective, I mean, what are you seeing when you say the market's shifting?
Well, I'll ask you. For example, how many times do you go out to dinner a week?
Once or twice.
Twice. Okay. Let's say once or twice. And when you go out, are you looking for value or are you looking for upper scale? Are you looking
On the higher end side, maybe twice a month.
twice a month?
Somewhere, like on a date with my wife or something like that.
Right.
The rest of the time, it is generally what is delicious, healthy. I mean, as for us, as a family,
guys.
I got young athletes and my wife's, we are both pretty healthy. And can I get it fast? And that being said, like, for instance, like we'll get catering from you guys because it's also like there's the whole other side of not going out, but getting the food delivered or picking it up.
Yeah,
and the ease of that. Like we'll have a dinner party with people and it's a casual one. I'm like, perfect. Like Pig Floyd's, stack the table, and it's so easy for us. 2 nights a week is totally accurate between going out to eat and picking up stuff.
And picking up. Yeah. Okay, so you're including that. Because I feel like the whole restaurant scene, it's getting to a point where the frequency is changing. We were always focused in when are supermarkets going to equal to the sales of restaurants? And that happened about 3 years ago.
Oh, really?
Where restaurants surpass supermarket sales.
People are eating out more
Right.
dollar-wise.
Right.
Okay.
And then the supermarket sales obviously went into prepared foods, where you see the Whole Foods of the world and all the other ones going into that world.
Okay, you're right. Yeah, bigger footprint of prepared food.
Profit in supermarkets, and I come from the supermarket world, is not there.
Right. It's
Right?
very,
It's
very,
very
very lean.
essence.
Yeah.
Where you make the real money is prepared food.
You're right. Totally.
So then all of a sudden this shift happened.
Yeah.
I mean, last night I went to Publix and you look at the bill at Publix and you go, wait, maybe it's even better to just go out, buy food, let's say Chipotle or whatever. The fact of the matter is I don't have to throw shit away. I don't have to clean dishes. I don't have to do all these other things.
Yeah. And look, I'm a decent cook and my wife's a great cook, but we're not as good as the restaurant.
Sure.
So,
Sure.
and we don't have access to those ingredients oftentimes.
Right.
So it's like we're not going to ever be able to recreate that in the house.
And that's why I say frequency is changing. It's just, I feel people think that it's easier to just go out, right? And it's just, I'll go out to the restaurant, I'll pick it up. Obviously, the Uber Eats of the world, which now, believe it or not, I think their sales are going down because I feel the economy, looking for savings in some parts would say, hey, I'll get in the car and I'll go pick up the meal.
Right.
Because it's cheaper than ordering from Uber.
Oh, yeah.
Right? I don't have to pay that extra $10 and I
Sure.
don't have to pay that extra fee or whatever. So I feel like there's a shift in the restaurant business that's going to happen a little bit more. But, you might see it more with the market style because I feel like those type of people get more of a resurgence as people go out and look for variety.
Yeah, I think the benefit of a market for sure is there's no veto vote. It's like there's something for everybody.
For everybody.
So a family can come and you're going to find something. I mean, if you can't, then your kid is just he's a pain in your ass. But for the most part, families can find something there. And I think that's true of other areas in town. If there's a variety of stuff in the neighborhood, like plenty of times we will go to one restaurant knowing that either 2 doors down or 3 doors down is something that the kids will like.
Sure.
That's still good, but we just don't particularly want to eat that. Maybe they want to eat sushi and we want to eat Thai. But if it's in a district, like when we, like with Millennia, developing Millennia, like we had all these furniture stores that kept coming. And you're like, but your competition's across the street. They're like, yeah, but if they go to our competition and they don't like what they see, they're going to come to us next. And so I think that co-mingling of different concepts in a neighborhood or like a Main Street district or whatever is so vital because it just means that a family can come in and you can pop around and get different stuff. Like we will go to a restaurant that has boba tea, but it's not as good as the one we know 2 doors down. So we'll order there and then go down to the boba tea, even though it has it. It's like, but it's so close. We'll go get it at the other one. So I do think that commingling with other, like-minded businesses helps markets specifically, but also expand that to a neighborhood scale helps a lot.
Well, it worked for the food trucks. That's what we did originally, right? Originally, we were all separate in separate gas stations and all that. And then when we started commingling and doing it together, it got better.
Do you miss those days?
No.
No.
I think a food truck is much harder than a restaurant.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah,
There's a lot of moving parts. There's the maintenance on the truck. There's going to the activity, getting the food prepared, traveling to the event, turning on everything.
Will the event be good?
Will the event be good?
Yeah.
Will it rain?
Oh, yeah.
How many trucks are they bringing to this event?
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of other factors, but
Is it still a viable way to start?
yes.
Okay.
It all encompasses like how good of a marketer are you, or how good is your food, or stuff like that. But it depends, right? Because you get a lot of people that are doing different things that are moving into a market. You can't start, let's say, a Camille in a food truck.
But that's actually a fascinating idea, to do an 8-seat chef's table out the.
I mean, it's fascinating, but you would have to
That'd be
get
hard.
somebody.
Yeah, I mean, and where's the location? But
Where's the
regardless, I mean,
location?
I love
Right.
concepts like that. But like wafu is a good example upstairs. They're taiyaki, Japanese waffle
They're killing
thing.
it, man.
The more we allow people to get market validated and to prove their concept and to get out there, that's where a food truck or pop-ups or whatever matter. I don't know that that's a viable business longer term, because one, at that scale, you have to be owner-operated. There's just not enough margin for you to work on the business instead of in it. So at some point, you've got to scale, and that's really where I think the next level is to get these people that were great chefs to then either bring in a partner or they start getting some business acumen and they work on the business. But to say that, I'm glad to hear that you feel like food trucks are still viable, because I mean, Wafu went that path to become one of our tenants, and I could tell before they showed up, I'm like, you guys are going to do great.
I think a lot of people, and this is strictly my opinion, a lot of people that go into the food truck world trying to open a restaurant, I think they do too much. I was at an event this weekend that we did with other food trucks, and it's just a lot of food on a menu instead of focusing on 2-3 things that you're really good at and getting yourself known for that. That's something that I feel is good, because now you're trying your marketing, you see what works or doesn't work and adjust.
Yeah.
You don't have to pay a lot of rent, right? You have a food truck that has some sort of value. I mean, catering is really where the business flows for marketing dollars. Meaning, if you go to a catering, you're getting 200 people trying your food, paid for by somebody else.
Right.
So it's just free
That's great.
marketing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're making money.
Yeah.
So that's why I think the food trucks work. But I mean, you can't do a Camille, like a 10-seat something, to get people to try your food. So you have to kind of adjust,
So that's always a balance for us too, is trying to find a way. So we definitely are still in the incubation game. Like we want to have, but the incubation could be, we just keep really relevant and curate really well, and you're getting that versus going between a nail salon and a dry cleaner.
Right.
So it could be that the curation is the incubation. It's me going, I know you don't have it quite figured out yet, but I know if you come here and I take a chance on you, like I haven't checked anyone's credit report that ever signed up with me, ever. I just go, I know where you live. And if we play nice together, it's going to work out.
Sure.
So I think, but to your point, like some of these brands have grown, but like Seattle, Pike's Place Market still has the original Starbucks. They could have kicked them out a long time ago. And so I think there will be some that are so signature that we keep. And there's enough margin and people, that are over it at some point. They're like, okay, I'm ready to go do something else.
Perfect
it's a great one.
place to keep there, I think, in my opinion.
So I think that allowing and supporting the businesses as they grow out it's the fun of what we do in the industry. I mean, some people that you've helped, just in mentoring and being available and open and going, yeah, this is a drag, and how do you get through planning and zoning, and how do you get your license, and all the stuff that goes with that. That if you get them over that first hurdle, then it's like, okay, I can go do more. And so I love it when the first, maybe Gideon's was the first one, when they had more Instagram followers than us, I'm like, solid. That's great. Like, just go. We are the circus. Like no one, like P.T. Barnum probably would have had an Instagram account, but it wouldn't have been as big as the Bearded Lady, Like, so, we want to still be relevant to the community, but also I love that the things that have been born specifically at East End that have gone on to really kick ass.
It's funny that you call it the circus. So what I'm trying to do, I call it the traveling circus.
Traveling circus,
yeah. Because I'm trying to build 5 different concepts that we can travel to other cities with.
That's a good idea.
So it's sort of a market, but with 5 different concepts, right?
Yeah.
What have you thought of developing another market, or how do you shift? Obviously, from your development standpoint, you do still development, but how does that shift with East End? Do you feel that there's other spaces for markets in other cities?
I think every city, Main Street, deserves to have a place where it's not so hard to rent, where it's a smaller space. It's a step between a food food truck and a full brick and mortar somewhere. It's like this kind of happy medium to try stuff out. It's been 10 years. Why haven't I done another one? Because I feel like if I do, it takes some of the fun out of having this one as like the baby. And because on the back end, I've been able to invest in stuff coming out of East End. And that, I think I'm 47. So once I got...
Man, you look fucking young. Good for you.
Thanks.
You don't look 47.
Once I got into my mid 40s, I'm like, I really want to be banking on people younger that have more hustle. Like I've got, 6 more months with my daughter before she goes to high school. And so just trying to enjoy that too. Like I really try to stay pretty balanced in all of this. And so yes, I could go do other markets. I probably could have licensed East End and done a bunch of other stuff, but it's like, I also have boring real estate that I do, like traditional real estate that pays the bills too. Like I bought a shopping center and it's got traditional tenants, but I am seeing some of our stuff being leased by guys coming out of East End or other concepts that were born in Orlando and have 1 or 2 concepts. Like we have Lineage out by UCF is in one of our buildings. And so we're seeing that too. And then working with guys like you and Johnny and saying, okay, if we've got a group of concepts that are proven and we have a shopping center that's, got a few weak links that we could buy the shopping center, fix it up and put some really cool stuff in there. That's when we turn that nozzle, I think.
Sure.
Like even Johnny would say this too from Bento Group. Like there was a time when that was still a small operation and they went, we want to play with the big guys. Like we want to be in the nice shopping centers. Like we need to step up what we're doing. They're from branding, design, systemizing things. I think that's happening everywhere. I mean, you're doing it, on the daily with your concepts, but then you've got those. And so you have others that are really ready to be in A-class shopping centers. And that's where we win. Is when something that was born here and nurtured here can then go be in an A-class shopping center in Jacksonville or Waterford Lakes or Nona or anywhere, and doesn't have to be in this unique little market thing. Like the goal is to get those concepts to where they can survive anywhere.
Do you feel that sometimes though the people that are like in your market, because I feel like I had a tough time understanding what A plus markets are, right? Because it's different.
Sure.
Insurance, personal guarantees,
yes,
contracts, everything looks very different.
Yeah, totally.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people maybe that are listening to us that are restaurant people kind of sometimes don't understand that is a whole different deal. Yeah. Right? Because you're taking a big risk. We're talking about anywhere. I mean, you can't build anything for less than $500,000.
Oh, no. I would say that a small, single type concept, little bakery, something probably $350,000, $400,000. But yeah, you're not anything quality. You're not in a 1,500 square foot space. You're at $500,000.
Yeah.
Easy.
Yeah.
And personal guarantee and 10-year lease. Yeah. And no, you can't sublease. Our lease is 45 pages. So it's not,
not
a
easy.
handshake. And
sure.
We don't put them out unless someone's an asshole. So for the most part, we don't ever look at the leases. But yes, you're getting into big time, big boy pants type stuff, that can be scary. But that's why you've got to prove it somewhere else. And I try to mentor people in the sense of if you ask for my time, I'll give you my feedback. Like two ladies that I met with last week, I'm like, close shop or don't do this. And they were like, whoa, this is not what I expected coming out of here. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, it's not as easy. One of them, I told them, you should just shut down the business and go get a job. Yeah.
Because it's not for you. It's just not for everybody. I know that sounds terrible, but...
It's a long grind until you either take on some debt to scale up and hire the right people and you really make a push, which is a whole different level of, do you want to take
responsibility,
that risk? Responsibility, or you're grinding. I mean, it's you hardcore probably till store 3, wouldn't you say?
Yep.
Like until you have the economy of scale to step back and have a GM or a chief operating officer.
Manager, Every call, every decision goes back to you. Now, how do you shift from owning a market to now being an investor in the background?
Yeah.
How did that happen?
I'd seen so many concepts come out of there, and I had been advising. Even like with Cadence, I advised them a lot on that their first location coming out of the market, and did that with everybody, just pro bono. Like, I'm a landlord, let me see your lease. I'm like, oh, dude, don't do that. Ask for a lower escalator. You need options, and just advising people. And then seeing in their businesses too. So the first one we invested in was Lineage coming out. They didn't know how to get a PPM done or anything, so I introduced them to attorneys. And so I was there helping. And then they're like, well, would you invest? I'm like, God, I've done all this work for you. I know what your books look like. Yeah, I'll invest. And so then each investment got bigger and bigger and bigger. And so I really do see that path of doing two things. One, I have a lot of traditional investors that invest in our real estate that would love the pride of ownership of a restaurant versus a shopping center somewhere. So I'm trying to bridge that gap. So I've got a book coming out called Second Store Success, and it's that gap. It's jumping from 1 or 2 stores to now I want to scale, because investors want scale. Like the one-off thing is really risky. But
they want growth.
If you can put it in a pool and do 5 or 6 restaurants and to take something from 2 to 3 stores to 6 or 7, I think that gets investors' attention, because it's also a big enough nut that they're willing to go, all right, I don't want to, it's not $10,000 or $20,000 here and there. It's like, I'm going to put in $100,000 or $200,000 and really grow something.
Sure.
So I think my interest in that is that now, having had the unique perspective of seeing so many businesses come through, I mean, I have a pretty good radar now and go, to your point of talking to people going, you're not cut out for this.
Right.
Or wow, like your branding, your systems, your people, your culture is so on point. And if I can help take some of the risk out by putting you in the right locations and bringing in the right kind of money that are value-added investors, that's where I think the future lies, is finding a couple concepts that are born here. And there's some that have already done this. I mean, I just saw Jimmy Hula's is like expanding. And I'm like,
yes.
we had two of those before. Actually, Lineage is in a former Jimmy Hula's out by UCF.
Really? Oh, UCF.
So we have local brands that are doing it. I don't know that like that one doesn't feel like tied into the community, that's really what I'm into, is the owner operators that like you are a student of the craft. Like you love what you're doing and trying new things and tweaking recipes, and like with pigs, like trying new dough. And I just love that there's someone behind that. But I do think the future is, in Orlando back in 2008, 9, somewhere around there, was definitely on the whole venture digital. Like, how do we support tech? But that ecosystem didn't exist in restaurants, because I felt like it was like, well, it's us, it's them. Like there wasn't like this general pool of funds or understanding of how to invest in restaurants. It felt very foreign, and people were used to real estate, like here in Orlando. So I think getting into that comfortability with something different is my goal.
What do you look for in a company? Like, I imagine that you're looking at the culture. I imagine that you're looking at the operator.
Right now, currently, I'm looking at how scalable can it be without losing authenticity, or losing what it does. Does having one in every corner of town take away from its charm or the way the community perceives it? Because I have no interest. I have plenty of opportunities to invest in,
one-offs.
Or like I looked at a group that's buying 80 Wendy's. I'm like, it doesn't excite me. I could care less. Like that's not going to move the needle in a community. But companies that are still have that sense of proprietor ownership, authenticity. They're still innovating. Like that's part of it too. Is like I don't want something that you create. Like Starbucks to me is so bland and tired at this point, compared to small coffee roaster operators. I'm looking at stuff that I think is already proven, like 2-3 locations, sales are pretty comparable in each one, overhead, employees, all those percentages kind of map out right. And then looking at, if you do another store and another store, is the Instagram still feeling vibrant? Like, are they still able to talk to their customers? Are they still innovating? Or are they just, now it's just scale. We get away from innovating. Because I think that's where, ideally, I think I probably get in, help grow some concepts to like 10, 15 stores.
And get out.
And at that point, I'm too bored. Sell it or keep some equity in and benefit from somebody that's going to grow it like crazy. Growth, take a minority stake. But I do think that
I just think at that point you're right in the money, because at that point that changes. Yeah. That company has to take a whole chain.
And the investor that's interested in that level is really more looking at totally bottom line. Like I'm willing to give up 3%, 4%, 5% maybe off the par to make sure that it's still a cool concept, that people have a pride of ownership, that they step in and go, this is different.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that, because that's an interesting perspective as an investor. So, for example, like when I bring investment in, I talk to whoever it is, and I'm very straightforward into like, hey, this is not only bottom line. You have to take care of, your restaurant so that you continually can run it. Like sometimes labor's high. Mm-hmm. Sometimes food cost is high because there's certain things. Like everything is not going to be perfect. Mm-hmm. Now, let's say an investment capital world, that shit don't fly.
Yeah, once you get to a certain level, you also have a fiduciary responsibility to the investor in their mind to seek return. at all costs.
At all costs.
Unless the ethos from the beginning has been, we're working with these types of businesses. We're going to make value decisions for the sake of the brand and the sake of the community so that it continues to stay authentic and cool and innovative. And we're not going to just do this, we're not switching to Arthur's flour because it's cheaper. It will taste like shit. Yeah. You can sell a lot more of it cheaper and the margins go up, but then you lose the quality of this. So I think that's the balance. And, it's certainly what at East End, why I didn't have other investors, is I wanted the ability to pick somebody who had no creditworthiness, who had no business acumen, but given the right environment, would thrive. And so I do think once you get that 10, 12, 15 store level, it really does become about, it's a machine at that point.
It's a machine, yeah. It's a cash flow machine.
And I'm a starter. Like I want to start stuff. I'm a creative guy. I want to help nurture things in the early stages. And then I've had to give myself permission to not have to be that next level, to go, I'm good. Like I've helped create some really cool things and launch them, but I don't really want to take it and just double down on this thing for the rest of my life.
Yeah, that's the intelligent way of looking at it. But people have to understand what their level of investment is, and what's their level of business acumen. Like, what do you want to do? Because some people just want to take it and just exploit it and sell it.
Yeah,
and then there's concepts that you just baby them and you have one or two.
That'll be interesting. I mean, the whole idea of cash flow and get yield, and like the more established the family, typically they're not looking for an exit. If they can get something that's going to return a healthy return and in perpetuity, they'll like just keep it going. Because I'm in this, I'll sell the piece of property. I'm like, great.
What do I do now?
Yeah. Where do I put this money now? And in this market, like, I got a great cap rate. I'm like, okay, now what?
Now what? Yeah.
So, but
a lot of people are getting to that point too, like where. And I tell you, I don't know what you see in the market, but I see a lot of people that want to retire, retiring.
Yeah.
A lot of people that are looking to get into the market, going in and finding money to do it.
Yeah.
The issue again stems into the, you just signed a 10-year lease. Now you're stuck with this business for the next 10 years. Like you can't go anywhere. You can't, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
A lot of people think that, oh, yeah, well, I have flexibility now that I own this business. No. It doesn't work that way, right? Now you have an asset that you have to take care of, that you have to keep going for the next 10 years.
Yeah.
Right? So in your world, in the marketplace world, there's a sense of that, I can shift, I can move. If this doesn't work, I can leave. The food truck world, if this doesn't work, I could sell.
Yeah, you were crossing the Rubicon and dedicating yourself to a longer term thing when you start to scale.
Right.
Yeah.
And I want people to understand that, because I think a lot of people going and we're talking about it. We're talking from small scale to next level. There's a disparity there, right?
Big. Yeah.
Your insurance, let's say at East End, is maybe $5,000 a year. My insurance at Pigza will be $48,000 a year.
Wow. Mine's 13 though, but it's not
48. No, I'm just saying. Yeah. I'm just saying as a restaurant in East End, probably.
Theirs has got to be tiny.
Yeah, tiny. 2,000 to 3,000.
Yeah, totally.
You're in that small world, and all of a sudden you look at this and you go, whoa.
Yeah.
$48,000. What the fuck?
Yeah. Well, listen, that went up a lot, by the way, recently. Just shockingly. Shockingly.
We can have a whole topic.
But you're right.
That.
I think that's people have to decide if they want to scale and grow and they're dedicated. Like signing leases with big companies for 20 something years. Like I'll be 67 by the time this thing goes into options or whatever. So I think this is not, once you start to decide to scale, you're stepping into a different realm. And either you find partners that are comfortable with that, so it takes that psychologically off of you, and you find people that go, I'm here, I'm going to be a restaurateur, owner of restaurants for the rest of my career, my life, and into retirement. Like that's the whole goal.
Do you feel there's a lot of people like that? Or are you seeing more of that?
No, I'm saying more me.
I know but I'm just saying, like, now that you're like talking to like-minded people, do you feel that there's investment capital out there?
Yeah, I just hung with Julie Petrakis from Ravenous Pig the other night, and just saying, like, we've all got our stuff going, and then we're saying, that's great, we're all operating that, but then what's the next level? Like, how do we start investing in these people that are younger, that want to hustle for the next 20 years? And then we're bringing our unique gifting to them in capital or know-how or value-added investment, and they're running with it. And I think that's how we start to level up. And out. Like, don't call me if someone doesn't show up to run the walk.
That's sure. Not that's not your job.
But there's someone who goes, I want that job. That's a really great job for me. So I think trying to find other folks that have been in the business that either have capital or have access to capital from previous gigs that go, let's go support this. You know, that doesn't have to be our thing. Like, let's find someone that needs the capital and we can advise them. And like, that was like when I invested in Lineage for the first time. That was the first time I invested in anybody that was using my money, you know, that I didn't have full control over. But I knew I could come in and fix something if it went wrong, you know, to some degree. I'm not a coffee roaster, but I'm like, you know, looking at the lease or there's issues with the city or whatever, I can step in there and help. So I think we have some of these people that have experience in different industries that could speak into the restaurant world in Orlando. And there's so much private equity out there nationally that are also invested in deals in Orlando from different firms. So I think I think the time is ripe to grow some concepts here, build some portfolios, and you know, start looking to create cash flow for investors.
When is this book coming out? I want to read it.
So it's done. It's we just finished the interior design, but the cover's done. It's all been written and edited, probably before summer.
Okay.
Because we're going to do some. We teach food entrepreneurship, so we'll do some lead up stuff to that, and then go, hey, you want level 2? Here's the book, and then after that, come back in the fall. So twice a year, I want to do like 101 in the spring,
okay,
and then 102 in the fall. So
how do people sign up?
So if they go to secondstoresuccess.com, I'll just have a link there. They can put their email address in, and as this stuff comes up, we'll ping them.
A lot of people have questions about the restaurant business, I feel like, and it's great that you're a resource now, you know, and you've been through the whole process and have years under your belt.
Right.
So I think it's important that people go out and ask these questions because, like, I think undercapitalization is a humongous problem in the restaurant business, and I'm part of the problem. I mean, you start thinking, no, you have this budget for a restaurant, and all of a sudden the budget goes out of the water.
Yeah,
and you're like, fuck, this whole thing changed.
No, you just have to value engineer.
Right.
You just go look at every time we're going to make the best decision we can, but the budget is.
It's
going to be what
sacred.
it's going to be.
Yeah.
Like there was no way to budget East End Market.
Sure.
Like I'm just going to go in there, and every decision is going to be value engineered, and we're going to do the best we can, and it's going to cost what it's going to cost.
It's great that you guys are doing that as a group, and I think obviously helping people develop as entrepreneurs is the biggest thing that I think you have my full support and whatever you need. But I feel like people need that support and somebody to talk to understand what the level of the project is.
The goal really is to make them consciously incompetent. They know that they don't know. And then here's the path to know it. Otherwise, they come in and they don't even know that they don't know it.
Yeah.
They think they got it all figured out. And like, dude, there's like all this stuff you don't even know that you need to know. And so if I can get you to the place where you go,
wow.
There's a lot I need to know. And either you find the partners, you get the education, whatever, but we need to set you up for success because we don't want failures in Orlando. We need people to be successful.
Yeah.
So even stopping them before they start.
Stopping them before they invest. I mean, because I feel a lot of people are like, oh yeah, that's going to cost $300,000. No, it's going to cost double.
Right.
No, they start talking about. And I do it even with Lake Highland, like middle school students. It's just interesting to see their perspective in cost.
Yeah.
Like they just research basic things and they go, oh yeah, it's going to cost $50,000 to build this restaurant. I'm like, where?
Yeah.
Let me put it right now. I'll send you the wire right now.
Where's that Google? Yeah. I'm going to Google that up.
Yeah. So I just feel like a lot of people need to understand what the whole process is and bringing them into that understanding of how does this work and how long is it going to take for permits and how do you sign that contract and what's the best practices in terms of financing equipment or what do I do here?
Do you lease it? Do you buy it? Yeah. All that. Yeah.
So I think that's great. Sure. Yeah.
Don't worry, I'll be tapping you for an interview in our world too. So
that's great.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you, man.
Man, pleasure.
Appreciate it. Yeah. Thank you.
Keep doing what you're doing.
Hey, thanks for watching. I'm going to sit here till you subscribe. Hello? Subscribe.